Hello everyone and welcome to the LSI F1 World Championship. We're today for the Mexican Grand Prix. Round 12 out of 14. 3 races to go, including this one right here. Qualifying is currently underway and almost finished. 4 minutes on the clock, and it is Sir Maxon with a 13.119, a 0.319 for Tyres Korsman. They're looking to try and compete for pole position. The last race winner around this circuit was Sir Maxon. The last race winner in LSI was Sir Maxon, closely followed by Nifo, who was trying to get them up to the line but just missed out, as they also missed out on a position for the podium in the sprint race. That was 2 weeks ago now. We're here at a very different circuit, quite a few straight line sections which will be absolutely crazy with the battery, etc. But then you've also got the next sector, the middle sector, which is incredibly tough on the downforce. The stadium section, of course, is in that final sector, but the S's, which we're about to see Verf go through, is where the downforce is going to be absolutely crucial. Just going to double check on what's going on in the chat as you watch Verf go through this S section, and then we'll be back. Alrighty. Just going to double check something here. Okay. And we will go on board. With Heisler as they get ready for their final lap. Alrighty, so it seems that Heisler and Sir Maxon both have grid penalties, unfortunately, due to a collision for them entering the pit lane. I think it was a practice start for, or practice pit lane entry for Sir Maxon, and either Heisler went into the back of them, or they went into the back of Heisler. They both got grid penalties. I don't know, but unfortunately, because we've never really done anything with that before, and it just is what it is, if you've had that incident, you've had that incident. We will not remove anything, we will not change anything, so we will have to see Sir Maxon and Heisler's starting positions be bumped down by 5 places. Heisler looking to try and get as high as they can because of that very reason. It's Verf out of the session. They will not set another lap time. It's the stadium section coming up for the McLaren as they understeer going into the next chicane, and once again understeer affects them. They'll go around the final few corners, but the lap will be done and they will not be able to improve the final corner and straight into the pit lane to follow on. That will be that. All finished. We've got Eager Pro, we've also got Tom and Charlie. Tom comes across the line, no, it's Charlie, sorry, to P4. P4, 13.4, that will be their session done and dusted as well. Behind Verf, who's done a phenomenal job to get themselves into that P3 spot ahead of their rival, who's Jericho Willis in P8. Eager Pro's got the stadium section to go to finish their session. And then it will be over for the Aston Martin as well. Currently P7 behind Nifo, who's driving with an injury, one arm. They've got to try and beat the one-arm driver. They go across the line, and they do so. They do so by under half a tenth of a second. Nifo can definitely come back at this one. Will they be able to get the job done? We're going to go on board with Tyus Korsman, who's looking to try and take pole, but they invalidate, and that will be it for the Dutchman. Nothing more can be done. It's going to be Sir Maxon, who's shortly behind him, is trying to defend their current pole position to give themselves the best starting grid possible with that grid penalty across the line, and they improve by another tenth. Absolutely incredible. It's Jericho Willis who stays P8. It's going to be Nifo coming around the final few corners. They keep the lap valid. They come out the final corner with a big squirm across the line, and they will not beat Igor in the end. They will not improve their lap time. It's going to be Tom across the line, and that's a P9 there for the German driver, 14.703. It's Sir Maxon on pole position once again. Lovely stuff. It's a shame that it's tinted a little bit by the 5-place grid penalty, but it is what it is. It's Sir Maxon who takes pole position, Tyus Korsman in P2 and Verf in P3. This is the race director, just in case. And we will see Tyus Korsman take the front spot with Verf completing the front row for the Mexican Grand Prix. We'll see you in a few minutes. Ready, hold, go! Who's going to get it into turn one? We are away. Verf on the inside line. It's Tyus Korsman who leads from pole position, but it's Verf who's trying to get the run. They're going to have to tuck in the slipstream if they want to go, but it's Charlie to the outside. They'll get blocked off by the Haas. It's the inside line now for Igapro, who's going to make it 3 wide for a moment. The Hungarian driver is going to manage to get through and hold that P2, but not on the exit. Igor's surely going to get a better run, and they'll get that Aston Martin into P2 eventually. It was very, very tricky. They've got the job done. They've got Sir Maxon to the outside line, who's trying to have a go. These guys have raced one another very closely in F1.5 before. They continue to race each other again. Now in F1, it's still going to be Verf ahead, who's defended masterfully there. They're on the inside line and holding their ground. The pole sitter, who's been demoted down to P4, now needs to try and find his way ahead of the reserve driver, but can't quite find it just yet. DRS will not be available, so they're going to have all the confidence on the brakes. Other than that, You've just got to do everything you can and wait for another car to make a mistake, potentially. We've got Nifo sat right behind in P5, who is there. And then it's, of course, Heisler in P7 after their grid penalty as well. Definitely looking to try and make some good progress. Last time we saw Thijs Korsman race in LSI, it was a wet start to the race. It dried up later. Unfortunately, they didn't get to the end of that Grand Prix due to a technical fault that wasn't their problem, or it wasn't their fault. It's good to see them back now, and we'll see what they can do. I believe they may have been in a Haas car there as well. That was a hell of a voice crack. We continue on the road, and Iga Pro 6/10 behind, holding on as best as they can. Sir Maxon squirming all over the place, can't quite find the gap here to Verf, as they've got pressure from Nifo behind. So Sir Maxon was right there, was very quick, of course very quick in the dry, but now things have changed a little bit, and it's all getting quite mixed up. Tom has explained or expressed his dislike for wet conditions over the last few races, of course, and really not enjoyed it in the F1 24 game, but currently they are holding on to the pack nicely and they can continue on that way. We've got Iga Pro taking the first time penalty already on lap 2 out of 36 laps they're going to try and get to, and they've already got their first time penalty. That is absolutely brutal. It's not going to be an easy race for the Serbian now. They've got everything to try and do here. They've got direct slipstream to Thijs Korsman ahead, but that's no good if you can't get a good exit, if you can't, I don't know, power through, because DRS is not going to help you. You've got to save that battery. To be honest, in the wet conditions, most people will save the battery quite nicely and have a lot to use on this straight. Not so much compared to previous games because of the battery being so much more aggressive, but you will have a lot to use. It's going to be super tough. Now, it really depends on what the drivers have here. Do they have wet setups? Do they have dry setups? It's all a little bit of a mix-up. Who has adapted their setups to the conditions? Well, we've seen that if you use a dry setup in wet conditions, it doesn't really give you that much of a disadvantage as if you decided to go for a wet setup and then got it completely wrong. So I'm sure a few people would have gone for some very slightly adapted dry setups effectively. So that's what we could be seeing here. That's what could be showing the pace difference, as Korsman quite possibly running a dry setup to make sure that they are quick on the straights. You could see them swerving through the S section. Absolutely incredible car control. They've got the job done, and they stay ahead nicely. 6/10 at the moment. Iga Pro very close to track limits, if not going over once again. And they're going to have to try and nail this exit. But if Thijs Korsman does what they did before, it's going to be pretty impossible for Igor to actually compete. Trying to get a really good exit, but looking at that gap, 5/10 away, I don't think you're ever going to be able to catch up to the Haas car in front. We've got Verf right there, we've got Smaxon, and we've got Nifo. Charlie over a second behind, not going to be in a position to overtake at the moment. We've got Charlie and Heisler, though, who are pretty close, and they might be looking to try and switch up. We've got Jericho Willis currently on their own a little bit. They've got a bit of a gap to try and catch to Heisler and Charlie, and then Tom, unfortunately, having some sort of issue, has dropped back significantly, but still in this race, despite having damage. I'm not entirely sure where they've got that damage from, though. Only 5 seconds lost with damage is pretty impressive. We do get Charlie and Heisler switching positions as they go side by side through the second sector on the exit for the double right-hander. Surely Hush is going to have it on the inside line. They do so, and now they'll head to the S section, and they'll be looking to try and catch up to the train ahead as they're in clean air, as they've passed the racing bull car now. This is their opportunity to make their impact in this race. 1.8 seconds, 1.7. It's Sir Maxon getting the second time penalty of the race. 4 laps, 2 laps later than Iga Pro, and we've got 3 drivers now on time penalties already. Incredibly difficult around this circuit, let alone in the wet conditions, but I did not expect it to be this early that we'd be calling out these time penalties. Here we go, Verf on Iga Pro, makes that move, gets a brilliant exit and has the opportunity to do it into the first corner. Don't think Igor's going to really push it too much, but they do so, and they will swoop round the outside to stay ahead and defend that position. We get our first retirement of Tom into the pit lane. No safety car will be deployed, and they will be fighting four-track position continuing. The Serbian does not want to allow anyone to go through at the moment. Verf is trying to see if they can get through and then maybe have a go at Korsman, but right now, Igor doesn't need to do anything that they don't want to, and they don't want to let that position go. They will stay ahead. We head to turn 12 as they look on saving battery where they can to try and give themselves the best chance on the straight. They're 1.7 seconds away from the Haas car, and they've got to try and make some progress. We've got Heischler, who's made some good progress on Nifo. Charlie's dropped away from the McLaren car as Jericho Willis is caught up. So everything's switching at the moment. The cars are all still very close together, but it is another opportunity. Well, it was hopeful for Verf, but instead Sir Maxon's got through now on the Sauber car. They're going to have to try and brake as late as they can without making contact with Eager Pro in front, and they do so. And Verf does not compete. He does not contest that position and will let it slide for now and allow Sir Maxon to go through. Sir Maxon, after all, has got a time penalty, is on equal playing fields with Igor at the moment. Goes for a purple first sector as well, looking very quick at the moment, as they do a little bit of a drift on the exit of the corners, as you kind of have to do it around the tracks on this game. No, Charlie loses the position to Jericho Willis. Jericho 1.6 seconds behind Heischler now, as Heischler is looking to get ready to put some pressure on his fellow countryman. Just up ahead in the pack of cars. Very, very tough job for Nifayan at the moment. It's a really, really admirable, is that the word? Respectable effort with an injury and driving one-handed in these conditions around this circuit with this little grip. Very, very impressive to even be on lap 7 out of 36, let alone looking to go to the end of 36. If they can do that, then massive respect there for Nifajan. And Igor will not be receiving any problems from the Ferrari car behind. The Ferrari will stay where they are and not need to worry about it at all. No competition once again into turn 4 and 5. They'll just let it be for now. And I don't think we're going to see any passing. Jericho tries to catch up a little bit more to Heischler if they can, as Charlie drops away from the Williams car. Has Charlie got damage on their car? I'm not entirely sure, but losing a little bit more time than I expected. We see Korsman go through this section, just allowing the car to rotate to perfection. Very good stuff right there. And into the stadium section. Looking like they're definitely wanting to try and get some inter tyres on. As you can see, that dry line is forming, and these wet tyres get a little bit harder to manage, a little bit hotter, a little bit slipperier. But still, once again, just managing them really nicely, getting the rotation on the throttle as well. That's Nifo 1.4 seconds away from Heischler. They're going to surely get some problems in a second. It's going to be Sir Maxon to the inside line and going for that P2 to try and make it one more. And I think it's going to be done and dusted this time around. Igor's still going to try and swoop it through. Will it work? I'm sure it's not. On the exit, they're going to have the advantage, and they muscle out the Aston Martin eventually. It's now going to be Verf who wants to try and have a go, but they don't quite have the run to make it work as well. A double overtake would have been nice, but they do just have to wait behind as Sir Maxon eventually gets through. Eager Pro putting on an absolutely epic defense, and in the meantime, it is Heischler who has made the move on Nifayan. It's Charlie, I think, into the pit lane, is that right? Into the pit lane for the Inters. It's actually Heichler and Jericho staying on the Inters. I did not realise that was their plan. We weren't really looking at the tyres because we thought everybody would go onto the wets anyway. Now, what we saw back in Monza for F1.5 was a few cars tried to stay out on or start on Inters, or was that a different race? Was that Silverstone? Silverstone, sorry. It kind of changed things a little bit differently. It's Heichler who's trying to find their way through, and they do stick their nose where it doesn't belong, but the space is left, and they have had the opportunity to do it. Very, very naughty, very lucky to be given that space. It's very respectful from Verf, and they will continue. And they will continue to make that progress. They're going to go to the wet part of the circuit to try and cool those tyres down, then tuck back into the slipstream. But it's going to be the intermediates only getting quicker in this race. So I'm excited to see where Charlie comes out of this one as well. It's Jericho Willis who makes the move on Niffo. Niffo now down to the last of the wet tyre runners. Is this the strategy? A one-stop on the Inters all the way, or is it a wet Inter strategy? Well, right now, if you're Tyres Courseman, it's going to be a wet Inter strategy to be the fastest tyre. These guys are trying to go for a bit more of a risk, and at the moment, is it working? I don't know. They've just spent about 7, 8 laps behind these cars before the tyres have really got faster, and then they've slowly made that progress, and now they're finally making the overtakes. Was this tyre, being on this tyre, worth those laps? Was it worth 7 or 8 laps? That is the question that they're going to be asking themselves. And now the next question for Heichler is, where do I make this move on Ega Pro? Am I going to have the exit? Am I going to have the run? Am I going to have the advantage down into the first corner? Well, they should have the grip. They should have the traction. It's just whether they can nail it or not. Well, Ega Pro definitely hasn't nailed that one. It's good enough, as I think Heichler might not have the chance, but they do get very close in the slipstream, and they're surely going to try and outbrake the Aston Martin. By they get to the first corner. Not a chance that they're going to back off, and they do absolutely send it, trying to make it work with everything they can, and the Aston just has to let it go. Ega Pro could not do anything about it, and Verf has managed to find the momentum over the other green car to try and have a look, but they didn't quite time it right, and they just got stalled a little bit on the exit of the corner. And that is a very good effort to try and spot an opportunity for Verf, but a very good effort for Heichler to make that move. Eagle once again trying to defend with everything they could, but it wasn't quite going to work. So Maxim now 8 tenths ahead of Heichler, 4 seconds behind Tyres Courseman. And now 9 tenths, so currently Maxim making these wet tyres work quite well, keeping them in temperature, but I'm sure they're going to be thinking about going into the pit lane at some point soon, within the next 5-6 laps or so. Courseman will be the one to make the call, and of course the cars behind can all react to them quite nicely. 5 tenths though. In the final few corners, that traction on the intermediate tyre is absolutely incredible. And being in that tow as well, Heichler making it work incredibly nicely. Would they have a go into turn 4? In the straight zone, you get a bit of a tow. If you can get the good exit on the exit 3, that turn 4 is going to look very tasty. But the McLaren is a bit too far back to make that a safe overtake, and they will surely have to back off. That's Niffo getting a time penalty there. Not on the intermediate tyres, as it is Jericho and Heichler, of course, and Charlie getting a massive undercut on everyone right now. But are those tyres going to be good to go to the end of the Grand Prix? Well, they're going to be good to go to the end of the Grand Prix, but are they going to be good compared to everybody else later on? I don't quite know. It's Heichler who would have liked to have a go at making that move before the S section to break away from the Ferrari in the S section, but they weren't able to do it just yet, and that might mean that Courseman tries to stay out a little bit longer, a couple more laps to give themselves the advantage. They know that the next wet tyre runner has got a time penalty, so they can relax a little bit, and they only need to worry about when that intermediate tyre catches up. Because then if they fight with the intermediate tyre, then they'll lose a bit of lap time, a bit of overall track time effectively. But there is a 3.5 second gap that they've got to try and catch as well. We're going to see Heischler go for the move into the first corner, getting a massive toe. And into the first corner, they're probably going to be ahead before they get to the braking zone. Well, they thought they would. They've moved across on some Axon and hit the side of them. And they aren't actually going to have it as easy as they would have hoped. They do eventually get there. They leave the space on the exit. Will the Ferrari car have the switchback maneuver available? Not quite, not on the traction. It wasn't a clean one, but they eventually got the move done. And now they're in P2. So Maxon trying to find their way through. Really quite confident still on this wet tyre. Finding amazing confidence on the blue wall compared to the green wall. That battle did gain Korsman a little bit more of breathing room. So that's helped them definitely for their race. But it's Charlie who's 14 seconds behind. Obviously with Nifo having a little bit of a moment. It's definitely allowed a gain to happen quicker than usual, but still, that gap, nevertheless, is pretty impressive, and they continue to make it work. But Heischler is the one who's looking to try and make that progress on the Haas, unless the Haas goes into the pit lane, but I think we're going to see the Haas probably go into the pit lane within the next 2 or 3 laps still, because by the time that 3.4 second gap is gained, it will be probably time for them to pit anyway. And now 9/10 so Maxon is behind. You just can't quite have the advantage in those slow sections. So Maxon, although still really quite confident, it seems, in the high speed. Well, now Heischler's got that clean air. I was going to see if maybe Heischler would be able to break away, but no, still. The high speed does work out quite nicely for the Ferrari car. It's Jericho Willis who dips a wheel into the wet section to cool down the tyres as well. Even though they're on the intermediates, but they're definitely making some good progress and they're only going to be quicker at this stage. Iga Pro and Verve have a little bit of a battle on their hands at the moment. They need to try and sort themselves out before they get to the pit stop section. I'm all over the place there. Trying to wrestle their car through to get a good exit on the final straight, but no, it's going to be into the pit lane. The first of the pit stoppers except from Sir Maxon actually. So it's Verth reacting to his old F1.5 rival, Sir Maxon making that call as the lead wet tyre runner. And we're not going to see anybody else go into the pit lane. They stay where they are. But it's going to be the Ferrari now out and behind Charlie by a fair few seconds, and they're going to have to get those tyres warmed up as well, so it's going to be by even more so within a couple of laps as well, but 6 laps difference. Let's see how that one goes. Let's see if it's going to be beneficial for Charlie to have that gap or not. Of course, effectively 3 seconds plus 3 for Sir Maxon, 6.2 seconds they've got to Charlie, so they've got to be working overtime here. Does the Polish driver in the Ferrari, the Polish driver in the Racing Bull right now, has definitely a lot to think about, just on a slightly different standpoint at the moment. But it's Korsman who still controls the pace, controls the race. 2.2 seconds as Heischler brings down that gap and slowly reels it in, but it's going to be a reaction, it's going to be a pit stop for Thijs Korsman. He knows how quick a fresh intermediate tyre is going to be. Oh, and I wasn't even looking on my screen. So Maxon's put a second set of wet tyres on. That is not intentional. That is not intentional. And that is a big issue. They can continue to the end of the Grand Prix, but they're going to be super slow compared to everyone around them. And that is such a disappointing way to make this race. They're going to go straight back into the pit lane. They're not going to waste any time on that wet tyre. So they go on to the intermediates eventually. But they're now going to have another pit stop to basically gain on everybody else. The good thing is that they have clean air. But the bad thing is that they've still got to make all that progress. And that's incredibly frustrating. I will say, Sir Maxon has won this very Grand Prix from last place before. Don't count them out of it just yet. Heischler leads the way now as Korsman makes it a pit stop window or a pit stop lap. Oh, it's a big understeering moment through the S section there. Might be time to go into the pit lane for a set of inters as well, potentially, for the Dutchman. And if that is the case, considering that they had their grid penalty, to be where they are right now is a pretty good effort. But I think they're going to continue to try and have a bit more of an advantage later on in the race anyway. Why would you chuck away such a strategy for the sake of it? Very different calls, of course. As you can see, that is Heischler, who's not opting to cool down the tyres in the wet section. It is Jericho Willis trying to cool down the tyres, however. So that's an interesting standpoint that Jericho's going to have to try and learn from, ready for tomorrow's race. And it's Verf getting the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, being on warmed up intermediate tyres now. Korsman's going to be looking to try and take that one away slowly but surely. I should say slowly, I should say quickly and firmly. Lap 16 out of 36. And not quite halfway through the Grand Prix, but very close to that mark. And we've got the Dutchman trying to have a go at catching up to his fellow countryman in P4, who hasn't made a pit stop on that wet tyre so far. And there we see Korsman already incredibly close to the back of that Mercedes. That just shows how much that tyre has the advantage. Going down into the first corner, they've got a massive toe. It's not amazing. I think they're still going to try it on the brakes. It would be silly not to. Oh, and Nifo braking incredibly late to give them a run for their money, and they are going to still go side by side through turn 2, but by the time we get to turn 3, it's already over, and the job is done. Very, very well done there from Korsman. Very well done to keep it side by side, despite the tricky tyres from Nifo as well. Big respect for both of those guys, and now Korsman has just got to try and keep it clean. The closest car behind them that's already made a pit stop is Charlie, who is about almost 3 seconds away. And the next car following is Verf, who's a further 5 seconds. And of course, Sir Maxon a further 16 seconds as they've had to make a double pit stop. So currently Korsman has a pretty nice advantage. As long as they don't get a time penalty, they don't need to worry about Charlie. And they can keep this on the go. They may have not got pole position, but they show decent pace. And they're now going to be on course to possibly take victory here in Mexico. Last season, the podium was Sir Maxon, Nifo, and Heischler, with Sir Maxon being a reserve driver winning that race. The pole sitter was Charlie himself. And that was how it went. It's going to be Nifo who loses a position to Charlie as they continue to struggle on this worn, wet tyre. They're really looking for something here to try and get the advantage later on, it seems. to try and have the tyre advantage, I assume. As long as they get it right with the selection, that is all good for them. It's actually Eager Pro in P3 still, running really nicely. They're gonna get undercut from the cars behind, that's for sure. But still, where they are right now is pretty good going. Considering that they were really close to the back of Korsman earlier on, maybe doesn't look so good, but their strategy is vastly different. They go into the pit lane, and Nifo still doesn't want to go into the pit lane. They're really trying to go completely out of the box. Literally staying out of the box and trying to make it work. Verf is now 1.9 seconds away and looking to catch. It's Eager Pro who is going to come out. I was going to say comfortably ahead of Samaxon. I'm now going to say ahead of Samaxon. 4-lap advantage Eager Pro will have, but the pace on that Ferrari and the warm tyres that they have right now will be absolutely insane. 5 seconds is the gap at the moment. Both on 3 seconds of time penalties as well. 4.8 already. Goes back to 4.9, but when we get to that middle sector, that's sector 2, we're now in sector 2 already. When we get through the S section, that's where it's going to really come alive for the Ferrari on those warm intermediate tyres. They've got them dialed in, they've got them figured out, and they're ready to go. Whereas Eager Pro is having to find the grip and see where it is on this car and warm those tyres up. 4.9 seconds, watch this change. As Verf does make that move, Nifo lets it go. It's Jericho Willis with a time penalty in the end. It's surely going to be Nifo into the pit lane after this lap. 4.7 seconds. Samaxon is trying to bring it down a little bit more. Not as much as I thought it would have been, but they are still doing it, and that is an incredibly late call right there from Nifo to the pit lane, who has got a puncture. That's why it was into the pit lane incredibly late. And it was a very, very good effort. They've managed to do one of the most spectacular pit entries that I've seen in a long time. Not intentionally. They keep it out of the barrier and they're good to go. Wouldn't have been the first time that we saw a car into the barrier right there. And bringing out the safety car. This time we don't see a safety car and we don't see a retirement on the pit lane entry. On the pit lane exit, we see a car leave and now they're on fresh intermediate tyres looking to go to the end of the Grand Prix. 14 seconds behind, they still have an incredible advantage. We'll see how it goes. But right now, Eager Pro has managed to bring that gap back up with a massive advantage. 4 laps over the Ferrari car, and they're bringing the pace in really nicely. 9 seconds away from Verf as well, and they've got even more of an advantage. 5 laps on the Sauber. Igor's in a good position relative to the cars around him. It's just how far can he get up the order? That's the question. We still haven't seen a pit stop from P1 and 2. They continue on their way looking for something a little bit different possibly. It's going to be Korsman to make that move and already be back in P2 since making their pit stops earlier on. It's not quite happened just yet, but it does happen there. It is secured and Jericho Willis doesn't want to fight it, wants to let it happen, wants to try and focus on their race pace a little bit later on as Eager Pro goes for fastest lap. It's Nifo with another 3-second time penalty. There's Verfa for 3 seconds now, and everything is getting pretty difficult on track. We've got a 3 second for Jericho Willis, Verf, Eager Pro, Samaxon, and now 6 seconds for Nifo Jan. And it's going to make it a little bit complicated to figure out when we cross the line, of course, but it does mean that those with all with 3 second time penalties can somewhat race each other on track. It gives Charlie a big advantage despite being on this very wacky strategy at the moment. It also gives Tars Korsman a nice breathing room around all the cars around him, of course. And it gives Heisler a bit more of an opportunity after their qualifying woes, which is brilliant to see. They've got a bit of good karma, I guess you could say, after some very, very bad karma in the qualifying. As long as they can maintain their good karma through all their own efforts, then they can quite possibly get a good result. Still leading the Grand Prix. I don't know whether they're hoping for a safety car or if they're doing this for a strategical benefit. I'm not sure, but we should see them into the pit lane if they don't want to lose overall time to the race. If they continue on their way, then it's going to be a bit of a different strategy call. That's pretty obvious, but I'm just stating it anyway. "17 corners, 36 laps and a 50% distance race. We are on lap 22 of the 36, about to make it lap 23. So Maxon, although I don't want to confirm it just yet because I haven't seen the exact numbers, looking to try and secure their championship. And if they do secure it today, we'll celebrate it in the next race after we have done all the numbers and made sure it's all official. And they've had an absolutely legendary season. Despite being in P7 at the moment, what a performance they've had. It's been absolutely incredible. A pleasure to watch. And they just got to try and bring this one home and hope that everything around them falls into place. But at the moment, 6 seconds behind Igapro, it's really, really, really tough. Still, not giving up and allowing it to work out. 5 wins in a row, I believe I'm correct in saying. Four wins in a row, I should say. They were hoping for 5 today, but unfortunately, it's not quite so straightforward, although they're giving it a good effort and dancing that car around the circuit. Heischler continues, going for the S section. You can see the Haas car in the background there as we look in the rear view mirror. Is the McLaren going to decide to go into the pit lane this lap, as it could be that the Haas is able to make a move within the next lap or so? Would they allow the Haas to get any satisfaction? As you can see, those tyres are effectively into slicks at the moment. They're okay on the front end, but on the rear you can see a very smooth patch in the middle where the grip is all on the right, or on the outsides of the tyres effectively. The middle's where it's all worn down. Still can be quite quick in real life if you make it work. In the game, you just get massive tyre wear and performance disadvantage. Even if it's in dry, you can still drive the tyres a little bit, but would be more optimal to be on a set of slicks. Never mind that. It's Korsman who's incredibly close now, and would they go for the move into turn 12? They could, if they get a good exit out of the S's, have a go. DRS will not be available through turn 11, but the braking zone should be advantageous towards that Haas car. But right now, looking at that gap, surely Heischler's good to go. Surely Heischler's good to go. I don't think he's going to be as good to go as I thought, but Thijs Korsman doesn't want to risk it. They don't need to risk it, and they will sit behind. They weren't going to go for a disrespect move. They will allow the McLaren to stay in front for now, and then go for either a more straightforward move into the first corner, or allow the McLaren to go into the pit lane. The McLaren stays out once more, and it's going to be ERS being used to the maximum to make easy work of the Papaya car. No questions asked, that move will be done. And the grip advantage will just be so superior, although Heischler's trying to give it everything by braking late, it looked like, but no, they did move back to the racing line eventually. I thought they were going for the inside line and go for the move, but it doesn't really make much sense to do that. They're now P2, and they're holding on as well as they can. I'm now thinking, are they trying to take it all the way to the end of the Grand Prix? Well, Nifo was on some pretty hot, wet tyres, and they were wearing out quite a lot because of that. That's why we saw the puncture there. These tyres, they're not going to be wearing out so much. In wet conditions, legally, you are allowed to stay out, and you don't have to make a pit stop if your tyres are good to go. That's going to be really tough to do. And I don't think it would be very smart to do it. But if they want to try and give it a shot, then it might be an idea. And that's kind of what Heischler and Jericho are looking more and more like doing at the moment. As they get to these stages and they've only got a couple laps left or a few laps left to go this Grand Prix, it gets pretty tricky. We've actually got dry conditions, believe it or not. And Nifo has not called it right. Going a little bit too early. And unfortunately, they're just going to have a really hard time. Now, unfortunately, I will explain something to you, and I shouldn't have to, but as you can see on the screen, even though there's no rain and there's a dry line, in the F1 24 game, if it doesn't tell you that DRS is enabled, then it's not really time to go on to a slick tyre. Even if it's completely dry, the track can be slippery wet on an inter tyre, and you've got to be so careful. And what you're seeing right now is that bug continuing in the F1 24 game. It is what it is. We will continue to race it for the end of the season. Unfortunately, Nifo's been caught out by it now, trying to make that call. It's impossible to make the call when you don't know what the game's going to do. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's not, and this time it is not. And they all have to wait for the DRS confirmation if they do want to go onto that slick tyre. Right now, Nifo's just going to try and hold it and see what this medium tyre can do. See at what point this medium tyre will grip up. Right now, they're just praying that it works out. Taz Scoresman leads the way. Heischler in P2 and Jericho Willis in P3, looking to try and get confirmation for a dry circuit to have a go on a slick compound. Verf 2.3 seconds away from Jericho Willis, looking to try and get ahead. They're on equal time penalties, I do believe, 3 seconds for each driver. And this is not personal, but definitely a preview ready for tomorrow's race, as they'll look to try and get the advantage, the mental advantage over each other before they do get into the Grand Prix. And that'll be the F1.5 EU Championship starting at 8 PM British Summer Time. That is 9 PM Central European Summer Time. And it will be Eastern Time 3 PM. 12 or 11 for Pacific Time, but I can't quite remember. It always confuses me a little bit. Verf continues to cut this gap down. Charlie as well, looking... I should say that, sorry. Charlie's actually been passed by Igor, who is on this tyre, trying to take it to the end. And the question is, will Samaxon have an opportunity to bring it back on Charlie after the tyre issues earlier on? Such a shame for Samaxon, but a brilliant fortune for Charlie. They've got to try and hold on with everything they can, and if they can, considering what was going on in the early stages of the Grand Prix, I'm sure that they can consider that one pretty good. It's Verf who is ahead. It's Jericho Willis who goes into the pit lane. Are they going for the slick tyres? We still haven't had confirmation that it's going to be dry. It could be wet all the way to the end, and they're going to get a massive shock when they leave the pit lane, and those tyres are going to be incredibly slippery. Jericho Willis leaves the pit lane. You can hear the wheels are spinning, and you've got the ghosting kicking in because of that. And now they're going to go into the first corner struggling like there's no tomorrow. I will tell you that for sure. Very tentative on entry, massive amounts of understeer, very tentative on the throttle to keep it in a straight line. But that is a slippy car. And there's a lot of corrections. It's definitely better compared to what it was earlier on when Nifo made that pit stop a couple laps ago. But it's still not ideal conditions for a slick compound. And they're trying to make it work, is Heischler. On that intermediate tyre, will they see a puncture before it gets to that point? That's Charlie of a time penalty, and now Samaxon and Charlie are equal on penalties. And that's going to be a bit more complicated for, well, both Polish drivers, just whether 13-lap-old intermediates will have the advantage over the 20-lap-old intermediates. talking about old intermediates, 28 laps currently for Heichler, and they're praying that that confirmation to go onto the slick compounds is going to come around soon. Currently sat in P2, 8 seconds to Verf, 15 lap old tyres for the Hungarian, and they're now getting pressure from Egapro. Egapro, can they make this stick? Time penalties will check in once again. It's 6 seconds for Nifo. Everyone else with a time penalty has a 3 second. The only two cars without anything is Heichler and Tyres Korsman. Now Heichler does lap Nifo. Nifo struggling on this medium tyre, and he'll be able to get a good amount of information from that, seeing that the slick tyres really aren't working for the Mercedes driver, and they just have to wait, and they still don't go to the pit lane. Jericho Willis, after a brilliant drive, is not being rewarded by being on this medium tyre. You can see how slow they have to drive that car through the S section. Really tough to manage. It's the situation that they're in. It's the situation that Heichler is doing everything they can to avoid, but may not be able to avoid it by the end. Are they really going to try and take these tyres all the way? Well, right now it looks like they have no choice. They either make a pit stop and come out, or maybe ahead of Charlie actually, which would be brilliant for their sake, but it might not be possible. We see Egapro go for the move on Verf, and now the Serbian driver is going to make that hunt. One of the freshest set of tyres on the circuit, with 11 lap old tyres against the oldest tyres on the circuit, Heichler, 7.5 seconds. That gap is going to be crazy. About 10.5 seconds at the moment with that time penalty as well. Egapro's got to really focus, head down, and make this one happen. They were driving phenomenally earlier on, and they're going to try and end this race with a bang if they can. Mexico has been pretty good in the past for Egapro. 2 seasons ago, they took victory here in the F1 23 game, and they're going to try and get a P2 out of this one. That is Nifo moving out the way for both the Aston and the Sauber. And now Igor has got a clean road ahead of him, ready to make this one work. And only 5.5 seconds now to Heichler. Lap 31 out of 36, and this man has been absolutely flying all weekend long in the race pace. And 10.8 seconds is what they have to Heichler behind, who's only going to get slower at this point. And you can see how much by with Egapro gaining corner by corner, lap after lap. Not many laps to go, but considering the gap and the rate that Igor is gaining, I don't think we're going to see too much of a contest. Heichler continues to try and make it work. Those rear tyres are completely smooth on the back end of this car. And it's going to be virtually impossible to do anything about it. Unless Egapro has a severe issue, they will not be contested. It's Verf into the pit lane. It's Verf into the pit lane onto a set of soft tyres. What on earth is this? Onto a set of soft tyres for Verf. They're trying to make the call onto the slicks, and they're going to try and get a good exit, but a pit lane exit, and then a good couple of laps in. But 9 seconds to Charlie that they've now got to catch within a couple of laps on a circuit that is still not slick conditions. That is an impossible task. And now Charlie, despite having issues at the beginning of this Grand Prix, being on some incredibly old tyres on an incredibly wacky strategy, finds himself in a P4 position. And in a very, very comfortable P4 position. It would be absolutely incredible. Pro catches up to the back of the McLaren car. Will this be the lap? Will this be the straight? Will this be the corner that they will make the move? Turn 1 will be what they're eyeing up. On the exit, the traction will be superior, but they're actually having some problems as well with the overheating, with the track getting slicker and slicker, drier and drier. We will possibly see a couple of laps at the end of slick running, but I don't think we're going to see any pit stops from at least the front runners on this condition. DRS not available, ERS will be there, traction will be superior, and Pro makes the run. Turn 4 is their corner, and Heichler can't do anything about it, yet slot in behind and watch that P2 disappear down the road. It's Sir Maxon who goes purple on a fresh set of intermediate tyres, and it's Verth who is actually catching to the back of the Racing Bull. Pro makes that progress, 7.2 seconds to Thijs Korsman, who started to slow down on track. We've got a yellow. Oh, and it's Charlie with a puncture. I do not believe it. I do not believe it. What an effort from them, but it's not going to work out in the end. And despite a very, very, very risky strategy call from Verth, they don't need to worry. They'll get that position back for now, as Sir Maxon is trying to take it away, in fact. Such a shame to get the puncture where they got it as well. They've got to do an entire lap until they can go to the pit lane, and they're not going to have any control of that car. Such a shame. But it's now Sir Maxon who goes on for the hunt. It's Heichler who took it as far as they could. They're going to go to the pit lane anyway, and they're going to go on to a set of inters as well. Looking to try and get the fastest lap out of anything if they can, but with Verth actually going on to that soft tyre and not going to be really that quick at all, that's actually an incredibly good call from Heichler, and they will not look at losing this P3. P2 is gone, but they will be able to salvage something out of the risky strategy, that is for sure, and considering their starting position on this grid, I'm sure they're going to be incredibly happy with the result, with the strategy that they have pulled off. Verth has a little bit of pace now, and it's slowly coming to them, but Sir Maxon should still have the advantage at this stage. It's just whether it will be enough as they continue. That was a 2/10 advantage that Sir Maxon had on their previous best lap time, and they have got the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, so they continue to go quicker, and they're looking to try and get DRS if they can. Charlie retires from the session. Niffa will be promoted by the end of this Grand Prix, and Igor continues to catch up to the Dutchman, who is slowing down. He knows that Pro has a time penalty. He knows he can allow this one to run it. And now it is going to be pro slick tyre. All of a sudden, Verth will have the advantage for the last 2 laps of the Grand Prix. And now Sir Maxon, despite going fastest, surely can't do anything about it. Verth will not have any overheating issues. They're still going to have to try and warm these tyres up, that's for sure. But Sir Maxon, whether they'll get DRS or not, they're not going to have the advantage in the corners, at least by the final lap of the Grand Prix. If they can have a bit of an advantage this time around, it might work out. They're trying to use the DRS to catch up, to give themselves one more chance down the main start-finish straight. But you can see Verth saving the battery, making sure that they have everything to use when they do get to that start-finish straight, to then have the advantage in the corners. And maybe it could just be enough, but they have to push in this X section. They're not pushing enough. They are not pushing enough. And despite having the advantage, they're really not exploiting it. DRS available once again for Sir Maxon here. And it's going to be absolutely extraordinary. Sir Maxon, despite being on the wrong tyre by the time we get to the last couple of laps of this Grand Prix, should be able to have a brilliant opportunity at making this work. Squirming all over the place on the rear end. DRS is available though. They'll be using the battery. What's left of it, that's for sure. And into the first corner, the Ferrari will go to the right-hand side to try and make it work. Will Verf try and brake late and swoop around the outside? He's covered it off. And Sir Maxon is in P4. Absolutely incredible. They'll get another dose of DRS as they go to turn 4. The traction will not be theirs, but it doesn't matter. Down the start-finish straight, that Ferrari has the advantage. Now, there's one DRS section that is available for Verf. There'll be a braking opportunity into turn 12 that they will have the advantage, but it depends on if they can get the run on the Ferrari car. That is the question that they've got to try and find. It's Egapro who's had a brilliant job at trying to make it work, losing the rear end under braking, but it's going to be Tyres Korsman making it work. Verf pushes to the limit, but they're going to go off, and it's not going to work out. They keep it out the wall, but Sir Maxon will get there. Tyres Korsman takes victory in Mexico. It's Egapro to P2 with a brilliant drive. And considering the situation, Heichler, hats off, absolutely incredible. Sir Maxon has made it work phenomenally, stayed in this race and will take a P4, very well deserved. And it's going to be Verf, who unfortunately, after a really good effort, doesn't make it work out and goes P5. It's Jericho Willis to take it P6. But this is your man. Stayed ahead of Egapro in the end, plus the 3 seconds, plus that little mistake that Igor had. Despite having the tyre disadvantage, they were able to just ease it home and allow it to work out quite nicely. Tyres Korsman takes victory once again in LSI. Good to see them on return. It's Tyres Korsman who takes the win. It's Egapro in P2. It's Heichler in P3. It's Sir Maxon, Verf, Jericho Willis with the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. It's Nifo in P7. It's Charlie, who is, I believe, classed as finished, and DNFing earlier on was Tom. This is the session results saved, and that's the race director having a look at all of this as we can. And then the pit stop section. We will be back for the post-race interviews. We'll see you in a bit. Hello everyone, welcome to the post-race interviews of the Mexican Grand Prix. That was an incredibly difficult race, but a very, very good drive for many of the drivers out there. Incredible stuff. It was really, really tough considering the circumstance. You've got one of the circuits with the least grip in this game, wet conditions, and also a little bit complicated at the end, so I want to ask you how that went, of course, but I'll let you explain the entire race. And of course an injury just to add a little bit more pain as well.
Yeah, I mean, from quali I already knew I was gonna be nowhere because I mean, driving in the wet at Mexico with one arm is basically just death. I mean, like the whole thing with the wet on this game is that you have to like micro adjust or like counter steer mid corner and whatever, and I literally can't do that because. One, it's my left hand and I'm like right-handed, so it's not even my dominant arm, and you just can't be precise with just one hand. I mean, you can be maybe with practice, but not with the amount of time that I have had with my left hand only. So yeah, and then the race starts. I saw Gijs and Jericho on Indus. I was like, oh my god, like I totally forgot you could do that, which was the right thing to do, was just to start on the Indus. So I already knew, well, now my race is definitely nowhere, because if I started on Indus, I might have gotten some people on strategy, maybe just keeping it on track, but I just dropped back, and then I was like, well, all I have to do is just try and keep on track, and then after a while I was like, well, I might as well just stay on the wets until it dries if it makes it. Obviously it didn't. My plan was like, okay, if I can make it to lap 24, I can pit onto slicks and it'll be fine. Like I'll manage it, even if it's still a little bit wet. Obviously, my tire then popped out of the last corner, so I had to go into the pit lane basically sideways. But we made it in. Yeah. And then I had to go for Inters, otherwise I wouldn't make it. And then I was like, you know what? Like as soon as the rain stopped, because obviously he said like, oh, it's gonna dry up, blah blah blah. I was like, oh well, I might as well just go for it. Like I have nothing to lose. Like I'm not like I was never catching anybody. Realistically, I was never catching. So I was just too slow to. I was just too brute. Like I don't know, but I tried, got out of the pit lane, and then had absolutely no grip for 10 laps, which was fun. Which is also fun is that my force feedback then, because I'm sliding in the wet, the force feedback just turns off, so that makes me even less accurate than I was. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. I beat two people, they might have DNF, but I still beat them. So, points is points. Yeah, I mean, with different circumstances, I might have been able to do something, but I mean, realistically, I should be happy that I even finished the race, because there was a few times where I've gone quite sideways, and to save that with one arm in the way is a little bit difficult, but I'll take it.
Yeah, you said it yourself. You should be quite happy with what you've done, given the circumstance. So really well done on that side, and thank you very much for giving that the effort. Belgium is the next race. I believe it's going to be also quite complicated with whether you're there or not. Is that a circuit that you like?
Well, it's a circuit that I like. I'm not particularly fast on it, but I think it's the same in Mexico, that like Le Combe is basically the same as like 1, 2, 3, with just like the fast like left, right, left, and with one hand it's basically incredibly hard to be fast in that. But I'll try my best if I can make it to do it with one hand. If it doesn't rain, I might be able to do something. So, I think my goal is just to have fun at this point. It's also the end of the season. I'm basically not catching anybody on points, and so see how it goes.
Yeah, well, look, really good effort, and you were right there up the front in the pack to begin with, so there's definitely promise. Thank you very much, Niv, for a really good effort, and we'll see you next time. And we move on to Dias Korsman, once again taking victory on our side. Welcome back, and yeah, that was a pretty good one. Would you say that you had it? Obviously, time penalty for Igor, so it was pretty safe anyway. If Igor didn't have a time penalty, were you managing the race nicely, or was it a little bit more complicated with the tyres really dropping off?
Yeah, I wasn't very smart with it at all, because I thought the track was gonna dry up like way sooner. So I wasn't really saving the tires for like a long time. And at some point I realized like, oh damn, it's not gonna be it. So I just started going like 5 seconds slower than normal, trying to save my tires so much. And I got to 87% on
Wow.
the last lap, so I'm very happy that I survived that.
Yeah, I did not realize that was the case. Wow, that's actually incredible. Really good effort. It would have been a shame to see DNF again. That was Silverstone last season, but well done. Really, really well done. I don't really know what much more to say really. Belgium, whether you're there or not, is that a circuit that you like more than Mexico?
I like both tracks, but I think Belgium is really good, and I think Codemasters for once did a good job porting the track into the game. It flows really nicely to me.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Really good effort today. Thank you for the effort that you put in. And yeah, considering what you just heard, you've driven phenomenally, so thank you.
Thank you.
And we move on to Heischler. Another phenomenal drive. We continue to go through the grid. So, really, really disastrous qualifying. You have to explain us what happened there. But then, starting at the back of the pack, you tried to do something different. I say you tried to do something different. Was that maybe the more straightforward strategy?
Nothing happened in the quality. Nothing. It was all part of the plan. It was normal. Nothing
Right,
happened.
I see.
So yeah, no, I saw the weather report in quality already, and I was thinking, okay, it depends on how long the heavy rain is, but it might be a really good idea to start on the Inter, since wets are just worse on this game than Inters in some ways. Not really in grip, but definitely in wear, and in when it dries up, yeah, then you lose a lot of grip on those wets, and the Inters are nearly the same in wet conditions. So I was already planning on starting on Inters in quali. And yeah, I did 32 laps on those tires,
Something like that, yeah.
and yeah, I had the same amount, nearly the same amount of wear as Fla when I pitted. I don't know how I saved my tires so well in, like, first not the ideal conditions for Inters, then in dry-ish conditions as well. At some point, people who pitted on new Inters had higher tire wear than I had, so I really tried to save the tires as much as possible, and there was some point in the race that I thought I might even make it till the end. But because it dried up even more and more, the wear went up, so that wasn't possible anymore. And yeah, then Charlie had a puncture and he had to pit, so I had pretty much a free pit stop behind me. So I could pit, but the ideal strategy was to pit on lap 20 already. I would probably be P2 then, but starting from P8 to P3 is pretty decent as well.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant from you, and it's a shame that you didn't quite have a couple more laps to catch up to Eagle there. But yeah, thank you very much for not giving up after that qualifying situation. It wasn't really nice, but it's the way it goes. Belgium, whether you're there or not, it's a very, I'd say, different circuit. It's a long circuit. Do you like it?
What I can tell from the races I've done there, I've become pretty strong there. It was one of my weak tracks, but now it's a pretty decent track for me, and I really, really, really hope that it rains again, because as usual, I'm really good at saving tires, but maintaining some kind of speed as well.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully we see the Heischler victory that we've been waiting for this season. Thank you very much, Heisch. Really good effort today, and we'll see you next time. I can't wait for Belgium.
Thank you.
And we move on to Samaxon. Samaxon. Wow, okay, so pit stop issue, before that qualifying issue, and you still managed to get there. That was close, I'm going to say, on that intermediate tyre. Did you feel it was a little bit easier with Verf at the end there?
About the intermediate at the end, I did the same thing as when pitted from wets to wets. Forgot to change it. But I didn't expect the inters to be good in the end. I was expecting that if I will, when I saw that I'm on inters again, I thought that after 1-2 laps, the track will be completely dry. I will be losing around 3-4 seconds a lap. It didn't happen. And I don't know, that's interesting way to end the championship fight with Charlie.
Congratulations.
But, yeah, and still congratulations to him for getting, I think he'll get the P2. So, and then also getting the Constructor Championship today. So that's another good thing. This race was just bad from me. Firstly, I mean, that penalty wasn't really my fault, but starting from P5 after a good quali lap, then just struggling on those wets because I think I had the lowest rings from everyone. Just didn't change it for the wet race soon. Struggling on the wets.
Were you hoping for the dry to kick in a little bit earlier?
Yeah, I think everyone was hoping for it. It just didn't happen. So then pitting from wets to wets, then again to inters, and just trying to get anything out of that race. I wasn't really expecting a P4 finish. Is it P4?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so that P4 finish. After driving last for, I don't know, half of the race. At least this weekend I didn't spun as the previous 3 Mexican GPs, so that's progress.
Yeah, that's progress. Yep, it's progress. Well, really good effort, and I forgot what I was going to say. That's really terrible. Never mind, I've completely forgotten it. I wanted to say it, now it's gone. Belgium, is that a good circuit for you?
No, just as the last 4 ones. I mean, including this one, it will be 5. So just like the 5 last circuits, it isn't a good circuit. But interestingly, the 4 last circuits, which I didn't like, I won on. So yeah,
Fair enough.
interesting.
Fair enough.
Now
Well,
Heish is back, so a
fair
little
enough.
bit more fight in Belgium. And if in this race, I think I didn't pit from wets to wets and didn't make the extra stop, I would have probably been able to finish P2.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully it goes well for you in Belgium. It's a shame that the win streak is now gone, but you've definitely learnt a lesson with the pit stops there. Thank you very much to Maxon. Really good effort today, and we'll see you next time. And a lot of not giving up in that race from many drivers. Very much appreciated. That was absolutely awesome. And we'll see you tomorrow all over again for the F1.5 EU Championship. We'll see you next weekend for the Belgian Grand Prix. We'll see you throughout the week for some more lobbies. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.